The egg pulsed in the dim, violet light of the alien cavern. Encased in a thick, translucent membrane, it waited, dormant yet alive. It had been there for centuries, buried deep beneath the surface of a planet long abandoned by its creators. But now something had changed. A tremor, the first in eons, shook the ground, cracking the hardened shell. The creature inside stirred. A tiny organism, no larger than a grain of sand, slithered from the fractured egg. It was almost insignificant in size, but within its microscopic structure lay the blueprint for something far greater. This parasite was the first stage in an evolutionary process that had been perfected over millennia. Its purpose was singular: to survive and transform. The parasite crawled across the cavern floor, drawn to the warmth of a newly arrived organism. The explorers had come, unknowingly bringing the sustenance it needed. The lead scientist, Dr. Malcolm Bryce, knelt beside the broken egg, examining it with a mixture of awe and trepidation. This is unlike anything we've seen before," he whispered into his communicator. "It looks ancient, but there's something organic still inside." His partner, Dr. Evelyn Carter, leaned in closer. "Could it be alive? We should collect a sample." The parasite sensed the opportunity. It coiled, leaped, and burrowed through the fabric of Dr. Bryce's glove, latching onto his skin. A sharp pain shot through his hand, but before he could react, the organism had disappeared into his bloodstream. He gasped, gripping his wrist, but the pain faded almost instantly. "Malcolm, are you okay?" Evelyn's voice was thick with concern. "Yeah, I think so. Just a sting. Must have been some residual chemical from the egg." They continued their analysis, unaware that inside Malcolm's body, the parasite was changing. It merged with his cells, rewriting his genetic code. Over the next few hours, it grew, feeding on his internal resources, twisting his DNA into something new. The first symptoms appeared quickly: an unquenchable thirst, an aching hunger, and then the fever. By the time the expedition team returned to their ship, Malcolm was sweating and pale. His breathing was ragged, his hands trembling. He brushed it off as exhaustion from the mission, but deep inside, something was taking control. His body became a cocoon, and within it the parasite thrived. Evelyn found him in his quarters later that night, curled in pain. "Malcolm, you need medical help," he groaned, clutching his stomach. A sharp crack echoed in the room as something shifted beneath his skin. His eyes widened in horror as dark veins pulsed across his arms. Then, with an inhuman shriek, his back arched, and the transformation began. The parasite had reached its next phase, a rapid mutation that reshaped his entire form. Bones lengthened and thickened, skin hardened into an obsidian-like shell. His face elongated, mouth splitting into rows of razor-sharp teeth. His humanity melted away, replaced by something monstrous. The tiny parasite had evolved into a predator. Evelyn staggered back, her mind screaming at her to run. But Malcolm, or what was left of him, turned, his blackened eyes locking onto her. He moved with terrifying speed, lunging toward her with clawed hands. She barely escaped, sealing the door behind her as his distorted screams echoed through the ship. The crew responded quickly, alarms blaring. But containment was impossible. The transformation had granted the creature unparalleled strength. It tore through metal as though it were paper, hunting through the corridors, eliminating anything that moved. Each kill fueled its next stage, causing further mutations. It grew taller, more powerful, its body adapting with each new victim. Panic spread among the crew as they realized what they were facing. "We have to abandon ship," shouted Commander Harris, gripping Evelyn's arm. "That thing isn't human anymore." She hesitated, torn between scientific curiosity and survival. We need to understand it. It's evolving at an exponential rate. If we can find a way to stop it. A guttural roar cut her off. The creature had found them. It stood at the end of the corridor, now towering over them at nearly 10 feet tall. Its elongated limbs dripped with the blood of its victims. But worse than its appearance was the intelligence burning behind those black eyes. It was learning. The survivors fled, racing toward the escape pods. Evelyn and Harris barely made it as the creature lunged, its claws slicing through the air just inches from them. The doors sealed shut, and the last thing Evelyn saw through the viewport was the creature staring after them, unblinking. The ship exploded as they jettisoned away, the blast consuming everything. But deep in space, amidst the debris, something moved. A single, tiny parasite, no larger than a grain of sand, floated silently. It had survived, and it was waiting for the next opportunity to evolve again. Far away on a human-inhabited colony world known as Epsilon Prime, the beacon from the destroyed ship was intercepted. The distress signal was weak but decipherable. A team of researchers aboard the colony's space station received the transmission, curious about what had gone wrong. Orders were sent, and a salvage vessel was dispatched to investigate. The ship's wreckage drifted in the void, charred and broken. As the salvage team approached, their instruments detected faint biological traces, something alive among the remains. Without hesitation, they brought samples aboard, eager to analyze whatever had survived the catastrophe. What they didn't realize was that among the debris, the parasite had found new hosts. As the samples were stored and examined, something microscopic began to spread. Within hours, one of the researchers, Dr. Lin Zhou, experienced an unexplained fever. He dismissed it at first, attributing it to exhaustion. But as the night went on, the symptoms intensified. His skin prickled with heat, his muscles ached, and deep inside, the parasite continued its relentless transformation. By morning, the cycle had begun again. A scream echoed through the station's corridors as Lin's body twisted into something no longer human. The nightmare that had started on the doomed expedition ship had returned, stronger and more relentless than before. Epsilon Prime was now the next stage in the parasite's evolution.